Welcome. Oh, there we are. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Etobicoke Civic Center. My name is Councillor Gary Crawford. I'm the chair of the Budget Committee. My colleagues are here, Councillor Layton, Councillor Nunziata, and Deputy Mayor Holliday. We're here to, as part of the 2020 budget process on operating and capital, to listen to you, the residents of the city, on your issues, your concerns, anything with regard to the budgets that we'll be, and we're in the process of making decisions on in the next couple of weeks. We have a few formalities that we have to go through, and would like to do that, and then we'll begin to hear your deputations and the presentations. And of course, would like to welcome Mayor Tory for joining us as well this evening out in Etobicoke. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and now is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. You can follow the meeting on your computer, tablet, or smartphone at toronto.ca/council. To begin, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Seeing none. As I said, we are here to listen to you and your comments on this year's budget. To let everybody know, you will have 5 minutes to present to us. I'll give you a little nudge just before 5 minutes. There's a little clock up here if you are paying attention. After which there will be an opportunity for any of the councillors up here to ask any questions of you. So just sort of hang on for a minute or a couple seconds after that. We'll see if there's any questions. Any questions from any of my colleagues tonight? We look forward to hearing you in the next hour, a couple of hours. We'll begin with the first speaker, which is Vincent Puhaka. Welcome.
Good evening. And I just want to open with a thank you to all of you for coming here and listening to us speak and giving up your evening. Of course, we're doing so voluntarily, but you have to, so thank you. Some of you have seen me before at these meetings. Mike, I seem to run into you all the time now in my neighborhood. I do want to open a bit differently from previous years, speaking before the Budget Committee. This time I want to open with a thank you. I know, keep your jaws off the floor. For years, people in this city have been sounding the alarm about our overburdened public services and the need to pay for them through tax increases. Yet, year after year, we have seen refusals, with some few exceptions, from the powers that be to countenance tax increases above the rate of inflation. This is in spite of warnings from successive city managers and from civil society that we cannot tackle our housing crisis, our transit crisis, or the deep economic divisions in our city without public money, i.e. tax money. Last year in this very same building, citizens from all walks of life said loud and clear that we can pay more if it means building the city we want to live in. Proof that people don't necessarily think taxes are some sort of evil. Now finally, we do see some movement. The increase in the city building fund of 8% over the next 6 years is a welcome change, and we all look forward to this money getting to work as the 2020s get started. I represent TTC riders, and as you know, one of our main campaigns is to reduce the cost of transit for transit riders. For transit riders, the good news about the City Building Fund is tempered by the fare hike set to take effect in March. I know what you're thinking, Vincent. With on one hand, you're thanking us for a tax increase, and with the next breath, you're mad that we're getting more money for the TTC. So bear with me. The key difference here is where the money comes from. With property taxes, the burden falls relatively equitably, spread across homes and properties of different values. While not totally equal, renters like myself probably pay more proportional property tax than homeowners. All residents pay for these services that benefit us all. Transit fares are the exact opposite. They're extremely regressive in that only the users pay, in spite of everyone benefiting from transit use. Think about it. Every time someone gets on a bus or gets on a train, that's one less parking spot used, one less potential accident on our increasingly chaotic roads, and one less contribution to greenhouse gases. In a way, transit users subsidize people who don't use transit, since transit use compensates for all the negative externalities of driving. This means next time you see a bunch of transit riders standing at a bus stop, you should all get out and buy each and every one of them a coffee. Without them, your driving simply would not be possible. All jokes aside, this is why we really need to see the planned fare increase canceled and the necessary revenue raised from sources that draw from the widest possible number of Torontonians, or from groups most able to pay more. The choices, of course, as you all well know, go far beyond just property taxes, and I don't really need to list them all here for you, but why not explore things like increased development charges so we can capture more of the wealth from the condo boom, or a GTA-specific sales tax? It's a conversation we as a city should be having, and there are so many possibilities to raise equitable revenue in this city. I'll leave you with this. Increasing the city building fund was a necessary first step to moving beyond the low tax obsession in this city that has governed, well, my entire life. But we need to do more, starting with canceling the TTC fare increase and using universal revenue tools to fund transit and all of the public services that we need and enjoy as a city. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Any questions? No? Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Svetin Burkic, I believe. You got to help me on that last name.
Burkic.
Oh, okay. Close. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to speak from a different tonight, and I'm actually, because I speak on behalf of my parents. Both are retired individuals who greatly benefit from the services that are provided by the city. And I'm looking from aspect from the TTC aspect. I'm all for the fact that, we're starting with the city building fund. But there's always been a crunch in terms of fare increases. My parents, for example, when retirement, they're on a fixed income. They have, they're working with less every day. Payments are skyrocketed. They also have to pay property taxes. Now, when I speak to my parents the other day, they come to me and they go to me. They're like, "Can you help me pay the property tax now?" Because they can't afford the actual increase of the cost, and I'm trying to help them as much as I can. And I, for example, have to work overtime to help them out. So I'm all for the fact to having the best transit possible. I'm all for the fact that we're doing this and having the city building fund. But at the same time, when you're looking at a fare increase and you're looking at people such as my parents whose affordability is shrinking, it comes to the sheer fact is that they cannot pay the amount of money that they could to afford this. And I'm asking is that to think about those fare increases and to think about other means and other tools necessary that is in city's disposal to look at other options that is available to them, to city council. And secondly, the property tax increase, yes, it may be $45 for the average person, but looking at the aspect of who can actually afford it and who can actually pay for it, and looking at those options available as part of the tools. So I just come tonight to say, when you guys make your decisions and you make them, please consider all those factors that is there when making those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate your deputation. Oh, questions, Councillor Holiday.
Thanks for talking to us. Heard that before, the concern over the rising costs of things around the city. I don't know if you caught the previous deputation, but the gentleman that spoke, his thoughts, and I'll paraphrase, were that, spare the fare increase, but put it on to the property taxpayers. And I wonder how you felt about that, because you talked about both of those, right? And you were worried about your parents and them being able to pay the TTC fare, but also you're worried about their property tax bill. So do you have a comment on that, or do you have a recommendation to us on how we would fund rising costs in the city and rising costs for things like transit?
All I'm saying is that if there's other tools like the previous deputant has put forward to be used as like other means necessary to kind of, looking at other options, such as the previous deputant saying, using all the other revenue tools, I'm thinking that is one option. I understand, Councillor, that you're with property tax increases and everything and so forth. But at the same time, looking at people that are on fixed incomes that could afford, because there's other things, they pay for, and it's not just, there's other factors that have to be considered. But all I'm saying is that looking at different options and other tools in the toolbox to kind of seeing what other methods that can accommodate for that.
Would you say that your thoughts on this are that we target certain groups to raise the money versus a universal? Like, there's two ways to tax, right? You can go after certain groups of people, right? You could say the highest income earners, you go after that, or something else, versus a tax that's applied to everybody else. And I just wondered what your heart says. Do you sort of go after the whole group, or do you go after a certain set of characteristics.
For that, I'm saying try to be equal across the board. I'm just speaking from example that I gave, that I'm seeing that, when someone approaches you and tells you, you tell them what the tax increase, and all of a sudden, it's hard for me to kind of, I rather be equal to everyone. I'm not, going for specific one group.
Okay, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Layton.
Thank you very much. Given that the transit fare increase this year is raising just a little bit under what the City of Toronto was getting from the vehicle registration fee, would you guess which group? Could you answer which group you think is more impacted from a fare hike in the City of Toronto? Those least fortunate who are struggling with affordability, or those that are well off, have multiple vehicles? Who's being impacted more by a transit fare increase?
So to answer your question, Councillor, I drive a vehicle. My parents don't, but in terms of impacts, I'm only going based on what's in front of me. And I think, like I said to Councillor Holiday, I said I have always believed in equal, whether you're when you're driving a vehicle or you're taking transit. I always feel that there's a level playing field that should be played on all sides. Whether we want to have a great city, to build on that great city, but we have to look at all factors, before I can make that final determination.
That's a very fair point, that we should be looking to raise revenue from everyone benefiting from city services. If I told you that last year we raised a roughly equivalent to the same amount off transit riders, but not off a vehicle registration fee, would that kind of speak to the inequity in the way that the city's raising revenues around targeting TTC riders?
I would probably say that, again, I'm all about the fact of being equal. I'm all about the fact that, we all pay our fair share. At the same time, we look at different situations. Every situation's different. And I only can speak to what I know, and I only speak to what I see, what's in front of me. And in this case, I'm only speaking to, my parents.
Mm-hmm. Listen, I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Daphna Godovich. Daphna Godovich. Okay. Next is Anna Ishik. Anna Ishik. Okay, Dan Cameron.
Hello, my name is Dan Cameron, and I'm a resident of Etobicoke Lakeshore. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to provide my input in the 2020 Toronto City budget. My main ask is that you further accelerate investment in the Transform TO, the city's climate change mitigation program. 2019 was the year when the climate crisis really exploded in the public consciousness. Millions took to the streets around the world to demand more action on this issue. Increasingly, more and more people are scared, angry, and concerned for what the future holds. In my view, this trend will continue, spurred on not simply by dire warnings from scientists, but from people seeing the rise in extreme weather as a result of our failure to reduce emissions. Over the holidays, it was hard to avoid the horrific images of the wildfires in Australia, such as families stranded by a shoreline, waiting to be rescued under a smoky red sky. Wildfires, wilderness experts say Canada is also in danger of experiencing. Besides everyday citizens, other segments of society are taking notice. Last week, the Globe and Mail reported that world leaders view climate change-related issues as the top long-term risks we face, according to a survey taken prior to the World Economic Forum. Also, the CEO of BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, stated recently in his letter to CEOs that they would be making sustainability a core goal of their investment strategy. Additionally, he said they would exit investments with high sustainability risks, such as coal producers. All this to say that awareness of the climate crisis is rising rapidly, and expectations for government action are rising with it. First, I need to congratulate the city on the leadership and foresight it has displayed so far on dealing with climate change. This is evident by both the progress of Transform TO to date and the decision last year to declare a climate emergency. I'm pleased to see numerous new Transform TO-related staff positions proposed in this year's budget. This is definitely a step in the right direction. But that said, we still need to go further. I want to highlight 3 areas I believe require more attention. Number 1, investing in making the TTC more reliable. Far too often I read and blog TO about subway issues during morning and afternoon rush hours with dangerously overcrowded subway platforms. These instances and the news they generate further discourage people from using public transit. Also, when delays occur, what used to mean people waiting now means people hailing rideshare services, which hurts by increasing emissions. Not only is investing in public transit essential for our climate goals, it will be needed for the projected influx of new residences to the city. This was the conclusion arrived at by the Globe in a recent editorial entitled, "Canada's cities are about to add millions of new residents. They can't all drive to work." My second ask is expanding dedicated cycling infrastructure. City Hall reporter Matt Elliott tweeted that in 2019, only 3 kilometers of on-street bike lanes were completed. We're going to need to expand bike lanes at a much faster pace to reach our Transform TO goals. Also, in my view, bike lanes should ideally be on quiet streets or have dividers or separators from cars so people feel safe enough to see biking as a viable option. And number 3, invest in the expansion of energy retrofits. Heating and cooling our buildings makes up a significant percentage of our emissions. We can help reduce this by improving building codes and adding funds for the Home Energy Loan Program and other financial tools. Thank you for considering my input.
Thank you very much. Councillor Layton.
If I could indulge and ask if you'd add a 4th to your list, and that's one of the unfunded items within our budget is our green fleet plan, and this is the idea that we should lead by example and invest in as we upgrade our vehicles, invest in electric or alternative energy sources. Other municipalities are leading that way and saying we're only going to buy electric buses. We're almost there, but there's a small number in the unfunded category around implementing our green fleet plan. So I would just ask that would you consider adding that as a 4th in your because I think the 3 others are right on point with what we should be doing. I would just, if you're talking to your friends, talk about our green fleet plan as well. We've done pretty good thus far. And hopefully we'll be doing better. And there is some investment around reliability in this budget, I'm happy to say. Okay. So I certainly hope that we'll be able to partially check that box for you by the passage of the budget.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Holliday has a question, actually. Hold on. Councillor Holliday has a question.
Forgot my turn.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, Dan. So you're from Etobicoke?
Yes.
So you were from Lakeshore.
Yes.
I know about the subway. I use it, but I'm curious as a local. Do you have advice for us in terms of transit upgrades that you'd like to see done here, and cycling infrastructure you'd like to see done here? And you mentioned quiet streets, and I was intrigued by that.
Yeah. Well,
Just as a local.
sure. I can only speak for my own. So I live basically on the Park Lawn and Lakeshore area.
Very nice.
So for me, personally, like my subway stop is Old Mill. So sometimes at night, like during the week time, I take the subway, I get off there, and I'm waiting a long time to get a bus, right?
Yeah.
So more buses on that station, and it's probably similar to other stations around, I'm not sure. And as far as cycling infrastructure, it was really great to see the bike shares along the new Lakeshore path. Those are really great. But then if I want to go up from the Lakeshore up to Bloor, there's no
There's nothing.
There's no way to get up there. And I haven't really looked if there's any kind of routes, like, because I used to be downtown and I noticed that they put some routes on the side streets, which are the quiet side streets, and that really, for me, as someone who doesn't ride that often, made me feel safer and made me feel like this is the better way to go. I'm not as much risk if I'm on like a major road, right? So I don't really know what streets there would be here, but maybe there might be something. Could be, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bret Lundy.
Hi there. My name is Bret Lundy. I'm a furniture maker, and I live and work in the Roncesvalles area, and my 2 growing kids live nearby. I'm here to offer my opinion on the importance of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and the amount of funding that the city apportions to this file. Keeping the city working for future generations is something you do at council every day, whether it's replacing sewer mains, creating massive sewer catchment basements, or spending billions of dollars to repair a 1.5 kilometer stretch of the Gardiner. You give each file the relative attention you think it deserves. I commend the council for recognizing a climate emergency, but the proposed funding comes nowhere near what is necessary to address this emergency. A city report states that $2 billion a year is needed for the city to reach its stated emissions reduction target. Every single credible scientific organization in the world has been unambiguously warning for decades about the catastrophic result of failing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But the overwhelming political response around the world has been to do effectively nothing. As you would know from your debate on declaring a climate emergency, what is called for is a huge and rapid decrease in emissions. What the arguments against action share, other than being tragically successful, is that they don't contain a single salient fact that stands up to rational scrutiny. The UN Secretary General recently warned that climate change is the single greatest threat to humanity. A similar stark message is coming from the currently ongoing World Economic Forum in Davos. If anyone here has any actual facts to dispute this conclusion, you should state them. You become instantly famous and receive the gratitude of countless millions, including myself. But that's not going to happen because the brutal truth is that human activity has resulted in atmospheric CO2 levels not seen in millions of years and a consequent warming of the earth with a lot more worse unavoidably on its way. Despite the fact that we are the healthiest, wealthiest, best educated people ever in history, we are handing to the next generation a world that is in serious, serious ecological trouble. We can continue to do nothing but window dressing. The polls show the majority doesn't want to spend any money to avoid catastrophic warming. And certainly people have lost elections advocating for change. But we're not getting away with anything. All we're doing is lying and evading our responsibility to clean up our mess. My eldest daughter recently told me that David Suzuki, a man honored around the world for his compassion, regrets having grandkids because he thinks that their lives will be that profoundly unpleasant as a result of climate change. So if it's dire, why do anything? Because the science is simple. Every emission that we don't emit means that bit of temperature not going up, and the future for our kids and grandkids being that much better. There still remains a clear path for us to turn this around. However, real solutions mean real money and real impositions and real opposition. But we're not talking about the gate of a landing craft going down on D-Day and we or our kids having to jump into the water with gunfire and explosions and comrades dying all around us. We're talking about a single percent, or at worst 2%, of our income spent to avoid the nightmare consequences of us all here, our actions. At this late point, I have no doubt the steps to take are very difficult, particularly politically. That's why virtually no one is doing them. As to the specifics, the solutions exist. This isn't a recent problem. Experts have been working on them for decades. Some governments around the world, particularly at the municipal level, but also a few countries like Ireland, are beginning to implement these solutions. Finally, I would like to say, particularly to those pushing for these policies, the more sunshine, the better. Whatever you can do to make this debate more public, more transparent, and more evidence-based, the better. You have the truth on your side, and hopefully increasing support to enact a effective and responsible climate change policy for the City of Toronto. Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you very much for your deputation. Next is Khalil El Fassi. Khalil El Fassi. Anna Gorka. Welcome, Anna.
Thank you so much. Good evening. I'm Anna Gorka, and educated in architecture. I'm here from Toronto, after which point I went to the United States to continue to learn about sustainable design. And my deputation today is definitely motivated by climate change that I perceive, like Mr. Lundy. But I want to come from I want to suggest some on-the-ground observations that I have due to an interesting perspective on the city. I'm in Ward 4 on Windermere Avenue toward the south side of Swansea because after returning to Toronto, I was shocked by some of the changes in rental rates. And when you work in design, you're not in that upper bracket of income. So I found an apartment for my family that was $1,400 a month, which is amazing. And it's a corner unit on the floor. I don't have to take an elevator. My laundry is right below me, so it's not too bad. But I see the social housing conundrum around me. And I chose my building because it's a mid-century construction of solid brick with an air barrier between two brick layers, with a slab edge that's ripe for ecological retrofit, whether you're to tack a trom wall to it or some kind of a new envelope. So in the 5 years I've lived there, there was one audit from health and, well, I suppose it was from health and public health, sorry. And I guess some of the charts were monitored as to pest control, and air quality was loosely examined. I followed the guy around, and we had a nice conversation. But I think with the same structure and personnel, you could do an energy audit on every multi-unit housing complex or building that you can think of. And Godspeed, because every emission cut is truly, truly valuable. So I can see how these things are slow to enact, but I really want to urge the speed factor. I just met Arif Irani at his office because my heart's in this. My youngest child is about to go to school, and I'm just trying to re-engage my brain a little bit. And engaging public process due to wonderful privileges like this opportunity today and the availability of our politicians is really something I'm grateful for. So thank you all, and I can't believe our mayor's here. I mean, that's amazing. So when I saw him, the hospitality was really inspiring, and I want to go right back and offer a free energy audit because I think that his south-facing storefront can have hot water tubes that could look pretty spiffy too, and a solar hot oven so that on solar days you don't even need to turn on your appliances. So I do recommend that we start to wean ourselves off of fuel sources and start with your own house, because I know I'm starting to learn about the Constitution a little bit and the 3 levels. Everybody definitely has jurisdiction over their own house, right? And you've got this amazing Alvar Aalto building, which is such a gem, and I see you've taken care of it. This one is neat too. I'm going to explore it as soon as I can. I'm sure that green roof by Plant Architects has benefited in quantifiable ways. I mean, biophilia is known to enhance everybody's work environment and change temperatures. You could use your south-facing windows for a variety of things. So run an energy on it. Use companies, and I don't know them all because I'm more familiar with the States, but there's EcoVert. They're an energy modeler. Is that the 5-minute countdown? Oh,
Nope,
great.
you got more time.
Good. So that's one company, and I have no vested interest in promoting them, but they're near me on Ripley Avenue there. So I also recommend running competitions, which is a tradition in Europe and Japan, and it gets people really excited and makes for some really excellent eye candy. You can offer a prize and build it. I mean, I got started in my passion when I saw Martin Liefheber win the Canada Mortgage and Housing Competition in 1994, and he built a completely emissions-free laneway house in the East End near Broadview and Gerrard, I believe, and the lane starts with L. I bet it's still there, and it recycled water, and there was nothing hippy-dippy about it. It was beautiful. I toured it, and those technologies were developed with Waterloo. So a lot of different areas were collaborating towards a beautiful thing. And then I've heard that channel of action from CMHC was scrapped in 1996, but I was 16, I wasn't paying attention. I don't know. But I know that when I came back to Toronto, you have U of T with this new lab on top of its roof, monitoring the effects of a green roof. And I need to verse myself in Transform TO and what you're doing with green roofs because I know there's momentum.
You'll have to wrap up now, actually.
Yeah, I'll say that my son wasn't able to come here tonight, but I could paraphrase what he wrote down. It's just a 30-second thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, I had one question for you from Councillor Holliday.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking to us. I listened to you. You spoke about the building that you live in with joy, right? Mid-50s architecture.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we are sometimes challenged with is the historical protections that we apply to buildings. And I don't mean that in a negative way. We protect buildings like this
Yes.
one, right? You talked about what you saw here. But when that happens, sometimes it results in higher costs because we have to bring in more consulting and use different methods and techniques in dealing with it.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on when we're trying to deal with energy retrofits in buildings, and sometimes you've got to choose between conservation of the historical component or modifying the building towards something that is greener or more energy efficient? As somebody with a design background, do you have an opinion on that matter? Should we be balancing on the side of conservation or the side of the environment? And I'm just curious on how we make the two work together.
Yes, conservation is very important, and sometimes those sweeping gestures may not be efficient, but they are iconic, and so we keep them. Then you have an instance like Santiago Calatrava's BCE place, and that is a full enclosure of a historic building. So that's an approach that is possible with the addition of a double envelope, an extra envelope, which is glazing. And now there are such great IGUs, insulated glass units, that can be assembled as a fully suspended wall. And that solution is expensive but elegant. And then when I'm talking about my building and a lot of these mid-century housing projects, those are a little more nuts, or they're made by bread and butter architects who were cranking out square footage, and those are really ready for invasive treatments that are more cost effective and actually higher performance. So you can make that distinction at your discretion for sure, especially with the Alvar Aalto building. And
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lane, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. It's just to say that while the investment towards Transform TO in this particular budget may be small by comparison to what I think a lot of us feel is necessary, and also small compared to previous years' investments at the city, in 2020 we will be remodeling to meet our new climate goal of a net zero before 2050. And so we're anticipating that later this year, we will have the roadmap that will require no doubt much more financing. But I would encourage you to participate in that process because it's the decisions that we're going to make in about 3, 4, 5 months' time
Okay.
that are actually going to, our staff are going to tell us how do we get to zero emissions by 2050.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just in addition to that, on the energy audits, the City of Toronto right now is the only game in town for energy efficiency. We run the only program through the Home Energy Loan Program and our high-rise program for tall buildings. Unfortunately, the provincial government got out of this business shortly after the election of our current government, and the federal government got out of the business of providing home energy loans before this government was brought in. It was actually the previous government.
That was green.
That was Eco Energy Homes Program from the feds and Green On from the province. We need
I have
those.
the T-shirt.
Yeah, you have the T-shirt.
Yeah,
Literally, or was that just?
I
a
do.
joke?
My kids were even in a
That's-
photo op, and
It's actually a fantastic punchline as well. I would just say, please get involved with the Transform TO side, and any opportunity you get to go back to your MP's office, remind them that the federal government needs to come back on board because it can't just be the city financing it. But our program, you can literally finance a deep energy retrofit with geothermal power and solar panels on your roof, as well as all the energy efficiency bits with the existing City of Toronto program. So we've put it out there. We know other municipalities are looking at what Toronto's doing, but we need the federal government to step up and the provincial government to start providing some of the incentives that only their revenue capabilities can actually provide.
wow.
So we hope they'll partner with us so we can just expand our programs and bring them to more households and buildings.
Well, thank you. That accelerates my learning curve a lot. What's the federal program called again?
No, there is no federal
Or
program.
what was
That's
it called?
It was the Eco Energy Homes Program.
Eco Energy Homes. Okay.
It's like 15 years, about 10 years
It's too
old.
bad.
Harper's later years.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shall I speak for my son quickly?
We can give a quick 30 seconds, yes.
Okay. My name is Wayland Nordfors. I am a Little League baseball champion. I'm lucky to play at the High Park Little League Diamond, Ernie Keith Diamond. And every summer there are hot days where I cannot even go outside, but I can go to High Park thanks to the big trees. So even though we can turn on the air conditioning, we'd like to go outside in the summer, all summer long. I guess he's promoting tree. He likes tree planting.
Thank you on his, yeah, thank you. Carmen Murray.
Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
Carmen Murray. I live in Markland Wedge. My concern is the 49 bus. I think we spoke about it, Mr. Holliday, a few times. So it's still not up to par, especially on weekends. So is there anything that can be done about that bus?
I'm just to let you know, part of the deputy, if you have, you can ask a question that we can answer at some point, but if you do your whole deputation, then
Oh, okay.
council will ask questions.
Okay, so it's
Sorry.
really quick.
No
So
worries.
that's one thing. Another thing is the fare increases that's happening for students. That's another concern. Also, I know that the city has in place for ODSP and OW people lower fares. So I'm wondering why not for people on CPP or seniors, even though they get the discount, that's like $2. But why not give them something like more of an incentive to ride the DTC? So that's basically it.
Yes, Councillor Holliday will ask a question.
Thanks for coming, and I'm glad you brought that up. Mr. Cameron over there, I wanted to ask as well. He spoke a bit earlier just about what he saw in Etobicoke and what he was interested in seeing changed. If I recall, you were interested in the bus Sunday mornings between 8 and 9.
You have
It's
an
for your
amazing memory.
Your son to get to work.
That's right. That was 2 years ago.
Yes, we did. I don't know if you remember, we did talk, and I did push the TTC on that. And I have to do it in the form of a question because of the rules here, but would you be aware that anything that you know or see or information that could lead me to trigger them to reevaluate, because the TTC, I don't know if you know, has a methodology to figure out where do we need these buses given the resources we've got. But as a counselor and any counselor, we're always happy to test that. So if you've got any thoughts or observations on people waiting or crowds or others that would say they would take the bus if we had it, all that can be fed in and we can always push for a reevaluation. So if I could leave you to think about that.
Well, there's one thing that pops to mind right now, and it's the drivers sometimes, they leave early. So if your bus is scheduled to leave the station at 10:33, they will leave at 10:29. So then that makes, people waiting another 40 minutes for the bus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't promise I remember your email or your phone number, but if you could get in touch with me,
I will.
I'll take a shot at that with the TTC because I'll do what I can to help. And I wondered if you could just clarify a bit deeper. This is more that what you talked about, the fare discounts for seniors on CPP. So we've got a seniors discount, we've got a student discount. Is your intent to have another fare class, or would you like to see the discount deeper?
I really see what I would like to see is perhaps like for seniors, like why not give them the ability to ride the bus, say from 10 until 3, like either less, like $1, or free if you could. I think that would give seniors more incentive to ride the TTC and not rely on people to take them or rideshare as well.
Yep.
So that's just a thought that I had.
Okay.
Because I know Mississauga Transit, if I'm not mistaken, they charge $1, isn't it not? For
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's possible. Yeah.
yeah,
But the concern is you'd just like to see more seniors on the bus. Am I
yeah, that
paraphrasing
can
just-
afford. Because
Yeah.
seniors really, as you know, are struggling in the city. It's getting harder and harder for them to live, and to go to appointments and stuff. It costs them quite a bit of money to get to and fro.
If you had a choice between seniors and kids having a deep discount, where would you rather see it?
Both, but
Fair enough.
yeah, I mean, even like the student that's on OSAP, like why do they have to, dig deeper to get to school, right? Because I'm not sure, are you still increasing the fares for students? Is that still for sure?
It's the proposal's still out there. Like committee can nod their head. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's 10 cents across the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so that's everything.
Thank you
Okay,
for
thank
talking to
you.
me.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Next is Melanie Bobrowski.
Sorry.
Welcome. You'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I just got here in time. We had a mass at our church, so I'm glad I got here. I can't believe it as soon as I walked in. Divine intervention. I hope to make it as quick as possible. I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm not a trained politician. I happen to be a singer, a violinist, and a musician. And maybe I see things a little bit differently than politicians do or people that run the city. I know that you have to have a certain demeanor and you can't be emotional. I have 2 suggestions, and I'll try to be as diplomatic as I can. I'm a very passionate person, and 33 seconds, that's not too bad. But anyways, 2 suggestions. The first one, I had the opportunity to meet one of the people that worked here who was in charge of building, the building codes, and what's his name, Mr. Seelock, was it? Yes, my intelligent husband. A smart woman always marries a man smarter than herself. And Mr. Seelock, at one time, when I was having a problem with my neighbor, with him building things without permits, said to me, Melanie, on the phone he told me, and I thought he was angry with me, he says, Melanie, you need to call his supervisor and let him know his behavior. He was building, we proved in court that he did everything without permits. Even though the inspector came out, he intimidated the inspector from this area. So if Mr. Seelock is still here, you can ask him, he knows all the details. Money was wasted. That's one place money is wasted, at City Hall. When you have inspectors that are supposed to go out and help people like me with a neighbor who's doing illegal construction. And he stopped him from doing it. But nothing really happened because my lawyer told me that he interviewed the building inspector. And the building inspector said, my father is a police officer in South America, and I also am very afraid of your neighbor, the police officer, a detective from the 31 Division. So nothing was done. He eventually, when the inspector came out, went livid, blew up, absolutely went out of his mind because at the same time he had killed a man on duty. Now that's a place you can save money, is making sure that your building inspectors protect people like myself. I have no power except what God gives me through what I say and what I speak, and I have a very strong faith. And without my strong faith, I wouldn't be standing here talking to you, because that's the power in my life that gives me the power to speak to you, because I have no fear except the fear of God, and also to do the right thing by the city of Toronto and by my neighbors. But seriously, this is a man making over $140,000 a year, still on the job, who lied about his illegal construction. You need to look at how do these inspectors do their, it's at City Hall, it's all noted, everything's legitimate. The second thing is, in policing, this man went so berserk that he lied and said that I threatened him. I never threatened him. We proved it in court. There was a stay of proceedings due to police corruption of evidence. This man is still on the payroll. If we continue paying people who corrupt justice, yes, we have to live by the law, but the law has to live by the law. I'm sure you could save millions of dollars by making sure that your police officers, your building inspectors do their job. Otherwise, it's a waste of money and a waste of time. 3 minutes and 37 seconds. Now, if I, as a senior, couldn't get justice, I have no criminal record, I do not drink, I do not smoke, I do not do drugs. Working as an entertainer, I saw what it does to people. And having a strong faith in God, that's not something that I was led to. I'm not putting down people who drink and smoke and have a wild life. That's your business. It's your business and it's your life. But all I'm saying that if somebody like myself, who has a good, clean record, who prayed for the police, who did everything right, who follows the rules, pays my taxes, if I cannot get justice, you are wasting money. Find out where the money is wasted in policing. How many arrests like mine, I was charged with threatening death and criminal harassment by 11 Division, and they knew him, they were his friends. And what a conflict of interest that it wasn't the OPP that came to talk to me and asked me what was going on. All of this evil happened to me because I stood up for my rights. Because when I came to Canada, my mother said to me, Melanie, this country is heaven, heaven. And nothing would happen to us in Poland and Russia and Ukraine can happen here. Never did I think in my life that what the lies that were perpetrated and the crime perpetrated against me happened in this country. I look at the Canadian flag now, and it doesn't stand for 100% justice. It's the same as what Putin is doing with the KGB and KVD and all the secret police officers. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to malign the police, but that's where you can probably save millions and millions and millions of dollars by researching.
We'll have to wrap up.
Sure, well, just research how many arrests that are false, unjustified, vicious, cruel, and mean.
Melanie, I'd like to thank you very much.
Well, please look into that. That's where you have a lot of money. And maybe hire psychiatrists and nurses to help police officers who are suffering post-traumatic stress.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you. There's your millions that you can save right there.
Thank you.
Thank you. God bless.
Next is Mark Shapland. Mark Shapland. I'm going to go with the three other people who were not here earlier. See if they're here now. Daphne Godovich. Is Daphne here? Anna Ishik. Khalil El-Fassi. Is there anybody else who does not have the name on the list who would like to do deputation tonight? Well, thank you very much, everybody.
There's a friend that wanted to be here, but she's too sick. She's a refugee from Chennai, India. Could I speak on her behalf? It's also brief.
I'm fine with that. If it's quickly, yes.
This deputation is on behalf of Ramya, and I don't know her surname, but I've been welcoming her to our public school. And Ramya had to depart from Chennai after the tsunami, which by some studies is a climate precipitated disaster. And there are many people in her position doing the same thing, looking for a better place to raise their children. Her husband is in Dubai, and they're a double income family. She's a banker, he's something. And as they arrived and chose to live in one of the newer condos near Lakeshore Avenue, it was discovered that this is a bit of a food desert, as well as a long distance from the public school. So she has to take Uber. She doesn't have a driver's license. Everywhere she goes, to Sobeys. I don't think she knows about the cheese boutique yet, but she really has to get around by car, and she will buy a car as soon as she can. So I would really recommend looking at zoning, or she recommends looking at zoning and trying to enact some of those 7-minute distances, and that's a new urbanist tactic whereby people, and it ought to be constitutional right to be able to walk to where you need to go. It's healthy, and it keeps cars off the road. And if you don't have enough budget in Transform TO for that, then how about taking some budget from the gardener and as a preserving technique for that road?
Thank you. I'll have to unfortunately end it there, so I do appreciate your
Okay.
opportunity. Okay?
Well, just keeping the cars off the road might preserve it too.
Okay.
Starting
Thank you.
incentives like that.
Thank you. Anyway, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Appreciate that. Definitely helps inform us as we're moving through this process to make the decision. Executive actually budget, executive, then council in a couple of weeks. So I'd like to move that the Budget Subcommittee for City Hall and Etobicoke Civic Center consultations receive for information the public presentations and the communications submitted by members of the public. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And again, thank you very much for your time tonight. Thank you.